The Canon R6 Mark II. So this is the camera I picked for myself to use it as a hybrid camera, and that's the main reason why I chose this camera to be my main camera. So this is my A camera. I am used to work with Sony cameras, so I specifically work with the Sony A7IV and the ZV-E1 at work. But the main reason for today is the Canon R6 Mark II, and I've purchased this camera for personal use, and I have extensively used it for over 6 months now, and it has been a joy to use this camera. I have a video right here that you can watch. It's a trip where I went with Bianca, my wife, to Italy, and we combined shots with the DJI Mini 4 Pro and the Canon R6 Mark II, and it was paired with the nifty 50 camera right here. So this lens is very tiny, and it was the lens I bought with the camera. I got this combo for starter. Now I have the 24-7, and this is a beast of lens, but is quite pricey as well. We'll get into these details later. This is the camera and the lens I'm shooting right now. That's why I only have the boxes here to show you. The Canon RF 24-70 is very recent. I got it like now in Black Friday in 2024, and it has been amazing so far. So, well, let's get to it. So let's get to more details about this camera and what we can talk about it. And the main reason I chose it for being a hybrid camera is because we're working here with a 24 megapixel sensor camera, which is great for both videos and photos. And this camera specifically shoots up to 60 frames per second in 4K and no crop applied to it. I'm used to work with Sony cameras, so at work, if you want to check it out, I'll leave a link down below. I'm a content creator for one.com, and there will be a link in the description if you want to check it out. So if you want to help me out, subscribe there as well. It will be very appreciated. So there I work with the Sony A7IV and the Sony ZV-E1. So both full frame cameras as well. They're both kind of hybrid, more the A7IV I would say. But then when it goes to 60 frames per second, it applies a huge crop into the footage, which is not ideal if you're a filmmaker or a videographer. Having that sort of crop is not something that would be enticing for me to go with. I also looked into going to the Lumix S5II, which is a great camera, but it also has the crop at 60 frames per second. I think all three take great photos, and they will do a great job in video in 24 frames per second. But this one just have the 60 frames per second uncropped, and that's the main reason I picked this camera over the other ones. I do love the A7IV as I work with it, but that's the only deal breaker I have for me is the 60 frames per second crop. What else do we have here? So battery life in this camera is amazing. So I have only 2 batteries, and I've used them in all my travels and all the videos that I have recorded with this camera, and having 2 batteries is more than enough for me. I will probably get a 3rd one just to be on the safe side on longer trips where you want to record multiple things. But to be honest, I have never ran out of battery with the 2 sets of batteries that I have. So maybe I'll get it, but it's just to be on the very safe side of things. But I'm very happy with the battery life of this camera. Another great point for me choosing the Canon over Sony was the ergonomics. So that's something I went to a camera store here in Sweden where I live, and I just tried it out, right? Because I'm used to working with Sony cameras, as I mentioned, but one of the biggest downsides for me is their ergonomics. They're very squarish, and my pinky is always like going under the camera because there's not enough space. They're kind of quirky and not so user-friendly in terms of ergonomics. And when I picked the Canons, even the smaller ones, if you go to the Canon R8, their ergonomics is still way better than the Sony cameras in my opinion. And when I took it, I was like, all right, that's the cameras I'm gonna go for. It's nice, I will learn another camera platform, so that will be also good learnings for myself. And that's why I ended up picking the Canon over Sony. So just looking up here, the next point I have here is color grading. grading. And this is something that has also been not a pain point for me with the Sony cameras, but it's usually you take a bit more time with the post-production because, or even if you're learning how to color grade, which was my case, it gives a slight green tint to your skin tones in Sony cameras, in my opinion, which is a bit tricky to correct it after in post. Of course you can, there will be a lot of comments down below like saying good things about Sony, and I think they're great cameras, but to be honest, when I started color grading with the Canon, they were so much easier to deal with. I think the color of the skin tones go already way better out of the camera, even when shooting in log, especially if you go to profiles that bake in the color into the footage. But even in log, when you're trying to manipulate those colors afterwards, they look so more natural compared to the Sonys. I think I've heard good things about the Lumix, but I have never tried it, so I cannot compare. The only type of camera I've used beside those are the Blackmagic, which was a bit superior in color grading compared to the Sonys, but I would say it's very similar to what we have here in Canon. So I'm very happy with the colors from Canon. I think that's a great deal if you're looking to buy a Canon. Just look into it. It looks better usually. What do we have next here? So we have stabilization in the camera. So we have IBIS, which is called internal image stabilization. No, sorry, it's not that. So IBIS stands for internal body image stabilization. All right, now we got it correct. The Canon cameras compared to the Sony, just IBIS alone, I thought it already operated better. I know that you can record gyroscopic data with the Sonys. They look great after you run through their program, but that's an extra step you gotta take, and I usually didn't use that. So people would argue like, oh, it's super easy, you put it in the program and it just takes a few seconds, but it's an extra step and something that I don't want to put it into my workflow, so I don't usually use that. And with the Sony cameras, the IBIS is so smooth and work really well. And now that I have the 24-70 f2.8, this camera, the L lenses, or I think any L lenses series from Canon RF mount, they have like additional stabilization in the lenses, which makes these things paired with the IBIS a great thing. I would even compare it to gimbal look-like footage. If you're definitely not like walking around fast or running, any of those things, forget about it, it's not gonna work. But if you're doing pan shots and stuff like handheld, they look so smooth. I'll probably show you some examples right here in the screen, but they look so stable. For me, I have a gimbal at work that I use there, but to travel with a gimbal is just an extra piece of gear. They are heavy, they're clunky, and they take a lot of space and time for you to set it up and balance. So that's something that I definitely don't want to travel with. It's just extra weight and complexity into your workflow. So being able to rely on a good IBIS with the lenses that has stabilization on it has been a pleasure. Like you saw here in the footage, like we have some very stable footage. If you're just panning and doing some shots like this, then you're totally fine with this combination here, and I think that definitely stands out to the Sony. Of course, people will complain, all right, you have the fucking camera wobbles, sorry about the language. So you have the camera wobbles that sometimes shows up in the footage, which is not ideal, but I think that goes like 24 millimeters and below that you'll probably get those wobbles if you're trying to vlog, which is unfortunate. I understand. I know with the Canon R6 Mark II, I think they kind of corrected, but to be honest, to vlog with this camera with a 24-70 or with a 15-35 lens, those things are super heavy, so they're not so practical to vlog with anyway. You would rather go with a pocket camera or something like that for vlogging. It would be much easier. I don't feel the wobbles on those, because if you go above 24 millimeters, you don't see those wobbles, and especially if you're panning shots and stuff like that, you will not see the wobbles. So you saw the footage yourself. Did you see any wobbles in those? So that's what you will get. Another great point we have is overheating. So this camera is very good to keep recording and not overheat. As I told you, I work with two cameras in the office. So I have the Sony A7IV there and the ZV-E1. We have taken those cameras to go and record customer testimonials and some stuff there. It's a bit longer videos, right? Even in 24 frames per second, the Sony ZV-E1, that camera overheated with us multiple times, which is definitely a deal breaker for me. That camera is great for videos. I know the specs are awesome, the stabilization is good, it has a good variety for the E-mount, so there's a lot in that camera, but it overheats, and for me that's a deal breaker. I don't want to be in the field and needing the camera and then it just dies. So that happened with me twice when recording video testimonials, and luckily I had the Sony A7IV and that one kept running, so it doesn't overheat at 24 frames per second. At least it never happened with me. And the same with the R6 Mark II, it never overheated in the 24 frames per second. I have never shot longer videos in 60 frames per second, but it would probably overheat. I think I saw some testings online, but it usually takes some quite good time to overheat. For me, it was never a deal breaker. I only shot like B-roll that I wanted to slow down in 60 frames per second, and they're usually not so long that I would have to record for minutes and minutes. So they're usually smaller clips, and I was always okay with it. So let's see, what else do we have here? So the 30-minute record. So the old camera, that's something I even considered the R6, the original one, for quite a while, because the price was very competitive, because when they announced the R6 Mark II, the prices for the R6 dropped. So there were quite good offers to go for the R6, but one thing that kept me to do that is first they told me it was an overheating machine nightmare. So I didn't want to go through that because of what I had with the ZV-E1. But secondly, because you had a 30-minute record limit with the R6, the original one, and you don't have that in the R6 Mark II. And I'm very glad, because then I can record extensive like interviews and stuff like that with this camera, and I'm good and I'm all set, and I know it's not going to stop recording, not going to overheat or anything like that. So that's a very positive thing. We have also the lenses ecosystem. This is something that Canon has tried to improve with time. At the time of recording this video, we still only have native glass for the full frame Canon. So I think they released APS-C from Sigma, if I'm not wrong. But for full frame, we only have the Canon lenses. I have only two for now because they get very pricey, so it's not ideal. They're great lenses, great quality, but they're expensive. This is something I think Sony's ahead in the game, because it has so much more to offer when it comes to lenses. Just Sony alone has a lot of them, but then you have Sigma, you have Tamron, so you have a lot of third-party manufacturers creating for the Sony E-mount cameras. And for the RF, that is a bit more limited, but I would say they're great lenses. At work, for the Sony, I shoot with the Sigma 24-70 and the 16 to 28 millimeters, both f2.8 fixed aperture. When I compare the Sigma with the Canon RF, I would say this is probably better. Not just the image quality, maybe you cannot tell so much, but the stabilization that it offers together with the high quality glass that you're seeing, it's unbelievable. So I think it's unmatched, and I think it's definitely worth the price if you have the budget to invest in something like that. And of course, you can still adapt lenses to your RF. So I have here some vintage lenses you'll probably see in my future videos, so stay tuned if you want to see that. I'm going to try to adapt vintage lenses. I have already tried it, right? So I have here some adapters that I bought it online. Those are from KNF Concept. So I have here, what do I have? I have a KNF This is from M42 mount to RF, and this one is from FD mount, which is the old Canon cameras. So basically it adds, here is the RF mount, and on the other side is the old vintage lens mount. So you can connect, and those things nowadays work because we have mirrorless cameras. I'm sorry if this is being too noisy here, so let me stop right now. So you're seeing how an adapter looks, which is quite cool. I'll show in another video maybe the results of what you can get with cheaper vintage lenses, because this, for example, I paid like maybe $5 on the used market, which is unbelievable. This is a Soligor 135mm f2.8. So I've just tried it out. Of course, it will have manual zoom and focus only, which might be a deal breaker for a lot of people. Right now I'm shooting with autofocus. I know people will probably complain, why are you shooting autofocus doing a talking head like this, but yeah, I'm just using it. It's very reliable, so I don't know. Could you tell I was in autofocus or not? Leave me a comment down below, but those ones, it's only manual. So I have a bunch of vintage lenses in here that I'll probably show in a future video, and that's pretty much it for today. I think you have a good overview of my experience with the R6 Mark II. In my opinion, it's a very reliable camera. It doesn't overheat, it provides great image quality, good C-log footage to color grade, and looks fantastic. Image stabilization is great, battery life is great. I think overall the build quality of the R6 is very good, and I would say it's a bit superior than Sony cameras. At least the ones I have worked with, as I mentioned previously, from work, right? So I think this is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you did, please leave me a like, and also subscribe to the channel if you want to follow my journey into photography and videography with the Canon R6 Mark II, the drone, and a bunch of other stuff like vintage lenses, for example. Yeah, all right, so this is it, and maybe next video you'll watch, I'll be doing some cool footage with vintage lenses or not. So subscribe and you'll find it out. See you guys. All right, let's do it. Thanks. Yeah, but this is great, to be honest. The Nifty 50, it's a very good lenses for the price. I honestly had a blast with it. Like, honestly, like we took it to Italy, we took it to Copenhagen, we did a lot of trips with this lenses only, and it's great. Honestly, I did talking head here in the office. You need to have enough space to back off, but if you do, you can definitely start with this one and then upgrade like I did. It worked, and now I'm very happy to have this one. But this one doesn't leave my bag, because if I need more than f2.8, I can go to this one, f1.8, and for what, $200? It's definitely worth it. You can probably find cheaper in the used market, right? Which now I'm an advocate for. Like, I bought all these lenses here. This is a Canon FD lens, but this one is broken. Look at that, look at that. But the aperture ring here, it's not working. But can you see here? Maybe you can't, or like this, huh? Yeah, I don't know. But I'll probably get another one of these. I want to have a collection of the Canon FD lenses. Yeah, they look cool. I've seen some shots with it looks very vintage and nice. So why not? Let's try. I'll let you know how it goes. All right, and off we go. Thank you. Till the next time.